Today's episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast is brought to you by AOS Outdoor Kitchens. They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meet and Greet Barbecue podcast with myself, Dan, and with Owen. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, that was a weird one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, not bad, mate. You?
Yeah. All right. Pretty much exactly the same as I was 20 minutes ago. Um,
The magic of recording. This is another week, a week ahead, and I just happen to be wearing the same shirt as I was last week.
wouldn't make.
Continuity. That's what people say, isn't it?
Why change the habit of a lifetime, right?
This is it. Yeah, this is literally the only thing I own. So
Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, this episode, this week, um, we've done one episode already, which is kind of like discussing things for beginners, almost like kind of lessons. We're not going to claim that we're experts on barbecuing, but we have been barbecuing for a while,
no, sir.
and we've had the privilege of speaking to what we would suggest would be big experts in the field. So we wanted to say, look, you're a beginner.
In the pit. I think that would have been
Exactly.
experts in the pit.
Experts in the pit. Yeah. Ooh, so cool. So you've bought all your new apparatus. Where do you start? What's kind of the first cooks that you can do that are going to be nice and easy? You've got your meat thermometer. I would say that off the bat. That's the thing that we think is essential. Um, how do you start your kind of barbecuing journey? We've spoken to a fair few people, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, Owen, but people quite often say that chicken is a great place to start with barbecue. I don't know if that's like a British thing because we eat lots and lots of chicken over here, or if it's just that people feel comfortable doing it. But it's an interesting place to start, I think.
I Yeah, mainly because I don't want to say sausages or
Hmm.
burgers, even though I do think they're a great choice because they are fairly easy to do. But I think I think people get more nervous about chicken
Hmm.
and it being undercooked and cooking chicken on a barbecue, as we know, and I'm sure there's still people we both know that still either pre-cook it in the oven and then slap it on the grill, or vice versa.
I have a
Uh,
story for that later in the episode.
Oh, okay. So I think chicken is a good area, even if it is just something like a chicken kebab, even doing something like that, before going to cooking a full chicken, as an example. Um, it, I, and also chicken goes with everything, in my opinion.
Hmm.
It's the vegetable of the meat world, in my opinion.
So, a few ground rules for this vegetable of the meat world. Um, Cooking temperature. So there's a rhyme that's really easy to remember if you're using Celsius, 75, stay alive. I think it's like 72, 73 is the like if you cook it to that level, that all bacteria is it will be killed in it. So if you've got a meat thermometer, if you take it to 75 degrees, you know it's going to be safe. Probe in the thickest parts. I would say probe in multiple places, depending on if you're cooking a whole chicken, if you're cooking a spatchcock chicken, if you're doing like a breast, if you're doing kebabs. But the easy rhyme to remember is 75 stays alive, and that's still something that I kind of cook to today. Um, I would say that people also have a preference on how their chicken is done and finished. Um, my wife likes her chicken drier than I probably would. So if I'm cooking for Steph, I probably take it to like 80. And in the UK at least, if you cook to like supermarket suggestions in an oven, and I've checked it, quite often it's even further than that. It's like 90 degrees because they're covering their backside, right? But general rule of thumb, or just a rule to stick to, 75 stay alive and use that meat thermometer. So very important.
Breed.
And cross contamination as well. If you're going to be doing any prep with the chicken, I'd use either a
Smear it
separate,
everywhere.
yeah, smear it everywhere, wipe it on as many surfaces as you can, other foods that you're doing, and then when everyone has a bad stomach afterwards, just blame society. You know, that seems to be the main cause of blame for everything. But we jest, right? Wash your hands before, afterwards, before handling anything else. Ideally, use a separate chopping board. Make sure you wash that chopping board as well. In America, there's different food standards, so there's lots of conversations there about whether you should wash your chicken or not. Being in the UK, we have different food standards, so I'm not going to jump into that debate. But if you are listening abroad, that's something that you can look into yourself. But it's more about making sure you limit the chance of the cross contamination, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Owen, for that, with those words of wisdom. But there's lots of different ways you can cook chicken, right? It's more exciting now. What ways do you like
Well,
cooking chicken?
chicken is exciting. I think. Well, is it exciting? I think it's a staple
Hmm.
on the barbecue. I think there's more exciting things that you can cook, but if I had my if I was if I was coming to barbecue for the first time now, I think probably the things that I would be looking at would be cooking some sausages,
Hmm.
cooking some burgers, some chicken kebabs or pork steaks or actually a steak.
Hmm.
Those I think those would be. But I'm interested to know what you would you accompany them with, and what would you that's not meat. What would
Oh.
you be cooking on the barbecue as a beginner, or that's good for a beginner to try on the barbecue?
Well, I'm going to put a caveat in before I answer that question about chicken. The reason I've gone back to it is when we've spoken to Genevieve in the past, when we've spoken to Marcus, when we've spoken to quite a few other people, I don't like the term real barbecue because that suggests you're taking away from what other people are doing. But they've quite often said once people are trying to flex their skills a bit, that's where chicken's a good place to start. That's why I've suggested it at this first point. But what sides and things would you look at as a beginner? I think a mac and cheese where you can like prepare things like you boil the pasta, you make the cheese sauce, and then you smoke it, or you do it indirect to get that extra charred flavor in there. I think that's really good. I think something fairly simple that's really overlooked, but if you're flexing your muscles as a beginner barbecuer, if you get something like a lettuce, quarter it, put some oil in there, and char it up on the grill, fantastic side to steak. If you have like a chunk of iceberg lettuce that you've kind of really scorched, crumble some blue cheese with it. It's so easy to do and it's so gorgeous. Asparagus, again, so easy to do. Direct over the flames.
I like a stuffed pepper.
Oh, I bet you do, you naughty boy. How are you doing
Yeah.
that? Tell me how you're doing
Uh,
the stuffed pepper.
so I'd probably halve them
Hmm.
direct over the grill just to char the outside a little bit. Um, and sorry, do the char the inside a little bit to get
Hmm.
some of the kind of moisture bits out. Then turn it over, stuff it, and I quite like to go with uh, like a mozzarella and pesto,
Hmm.
um, and then turn it back over direct on the grill. Sorry, over the coal again to get the char on the outside. So you've got the kind of pesto cheesy mix in the middle, but the kind of charred flavour. I always think that's quite. Again, it's fairly simple. It's not groundbreaking in any way, shape, or form, but it's quite a nice flavour. Quite like the charredness to it. Um, what about humble potato?
Hmm.
Even
Well,
if it's just even if it's just jacket potato, like even just doing it, wrap it in tin foil and just putting them. Not obviously what you were talking about in the last episode where you leave it for 2 weeks in the actual thing. But even if you're cooking it in tin foil, right, and just leaving them
oh, they
to
go
cook.
nutty. They go so nutty. There's something about doing it that way in the fire that I don't know what it does to sugars, maybe compared to if you're doing it in like an oven. But olive oil, stab it with a fork, salt, pepper, wrap it up, and just lob it in those coals and leave them. Leave them for as long as you dare. Maybe turn them every so often. Absolutely glorious and simple to do as well.
Yeah, I agree. I quite like doing a loaded skin though.
Yeah.
So you're cooking them up,
Hmm.
and then you're halving them, mashing the potato a little bit. Cook some streaky bacon on the
Yep.
barbecue, so that's nice and crisp. Cut it up, mix it in, bit of cheese on top, back on the grill.
I like a bit of sour cream in there as well.
What, in the potato?
Yeah, in that little mash mixture you've done,
Yeah,
a little bit of sour cream in there as well. Chuck it in
yeah.
there, bit of moz as well. Mozzarella, just melt it all down. Absolutely glorious. Potato wedges. So if you're cooking quite hot but indirect at like 180, 200, say you're doing a whole chicken, you're almost using the barbecue like you would an oven, like 180, 190, something like that. Chicken on the other side. If you get like a cooking tray or like a tinfoil tray or something, cut up like you would potato wedges, bit of olive oil, salt, pepper, maybe some whole cloves of garlic, or even cut a bowl, a whole, not bowl, yeah, the bulb of garlic, and lob it in there. It goes really sweet, and that's a great way to serve potatoes. And like, so easy. I think sometimes people think barbecuing can be a bit intimidating, but I think if you try and flip your mindset and just think of it as an outdoor oven, to people who barbecue a lot, that might seem obvious, but there's no need to be afraid of it. And frankly, particularly if you're cooking a few different things, what's the worst that's going to happen? One thing's not going to be nice. Just go for it, play with it, because the extra flavor that you get from the coals or the wood if you're smoking is so great. It's worth experimenting in
You know
that
what?
way.
Sometimes you because all of the great people that we know
Hmm.
that we've spoken to along the way, or we've met, or we follow, or whatever, and some of the incredible cooks. Sometimes you and just kind of the own level of what we do. Again, disclaimer: we're not experts, but you do kind of take for granted just the type of stuff that we do and how other people think that that's. I can't believe you can do that on a barbecue. I was having a conversation with someone today actually, and we were just having a catch up at work and sort of talking about the weekend, and he was like, "Oh, actually, I'm going to do a barbecue, and I'm potentially looking at a new one. Had like a barrel style one, and also a kettle, and he and basically he wanted to buy a barrel one
Hmm.
because it rusted out. Long and short of it was." And I said, well, look, my go-to, and we spoke about this in an episode a few weeks ago. My go-to would be just getting a Weber kettle,
Yeah.
quality build, reasonably priced, last forever. Mine's nearly 15 years old, still an absolute workhorse. And his response was, yeah, but the reason I've got a barrel one is then because I can cook on one side and then move things over to the other side and keep them warm. And I was like, but you can do that on a kettle.
Yeah.
No, you can't. And it's like, no,
Yeah,
you
you
can.
can.
So you do, it's called two zone. You literally just put the charcoal on one side, put the food on the other side, put the lid on, and it'll actually cook it for itself, and then you can just finish stuff off or whatever. And it was just like, oh, I didn't realize you could do that. So it is interesting. Sometimes you just take the stuff that we do for granted that, you assume everyone can do it.
But on that point, have a look at different accessories available, because you get the fire baskets from Weber that literally take up half of the barbecue that you put on the one side, and you just load up the charcoal that way. So you don't even have to worry about kind of loading it up in it and pushing it all to one side. Just put it in the basket, drop the basket in. It's all done on one side. Fire light up, off you go. And it'll do that for you. And going back to chicken, because I mentioned it earlier, there's so much you can do once you two zone. You can spatchcock the chicken, just cut out the spine, put it directly over the top of the coals, 3 minutes one side, 3 minutes the other, to get some char on there. Stick it in, like, so it's no longer directly over it, indirect. just to make it easier for terminology if you've not done it before. And then just you check it 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes with the meat thermometer until you hit your temperature. That looks mind blowing to people who don't barbecue, and the extra flavor that you will get from that bird from doing it that way, amazing. And then you start thinking about rubs. Then you start thinking about, well, actually, shall I put a bit of wood in there to get different bits of flavor? And there's so much that you can do. Shall I put sauce on it while it's cooking? Shall I mop it? Shall I pretend that I'm at Nando's? The wife loves Nando's, right? Let's put a load of the Nando's sauce on there, and you can get far better results than you can from a mediocre chain restaurant. There's so much that you can do. And that's just looking at that piece of meat. Steak you mentioned earlier as well, as sausages and burgers. As soon as you're looking at two zoning, that opens up worlds of like reverse searing. And you've got a meat thermometer, so you can take the meat to exactly where you want to. It's going to be perfectly cooked every single time. But the fact that you're next to the barbecue and you've got the control of opening it, looking at it, closing it, staying on top of it the whole time, you've got 100% control and the added flavor of that. There's no reason to be intimidated at all.
If you've been looking or thinking about an outdoor kitchen, then look no further than AOS Outdoor Kitchens.
They are the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.
Their extensive showroom is based just outside Bournemouth on the Dorset-Hampshire border, and as well as numerous in-store displays, also features a live outdoor kitchen where they cook every week on Kamado grills, pizza ovens, and all filmed and shown on YouTube.
They offer a wealth of knowledge on how to transform your patio into the most incredible outdoor dining area with styles and options to suit every budget, and you can guarantee they will be able to create something perfectly suited to you and your home.
They stock and supply everything that you're going to need for outdoor cooking, including barbecues, Kamado ovens, pizza ovens, outdoor fridges, and every accessory that you would need to become the ultimate outdoor chef.
So if you want to make yourself the envy of your friends and neighbours, get in touch with them today to arrange a consultation and take the first step in transforming your back garden into the most incredible entertainment space.
Visit aoskitchens.co.uk. So I know we're supposed to be talking about beginners stuff, but I am going to be in a beginner's situation. So I think it's appropriate and talking about intimidation. So someone has challenged me to cook a vegan meat substitute and make the best barbecue out of it. I've never even heard of it before. It's called seitan.
Oh yeah. It's that is hard. Are you gonna buy some stuff? Are you gonna make it from scratch with the flour and water and washing it and doing all that stuff?
Truth is, I don't know. It was one of these things that they challenged me. They did me a favor, and they would it was a bit of joking around. Oh, well, you'll have to cook me some vegan barbecue, and I went, yeah, sure. That was ages ago. And then when I spoke to him a couple of days ago, he was like, so how have you got on? Have you practiced? And I was like, damn, I've actually forgotten. He's expecting me. I'm seeing him in a few weeks' time, and he's actually expecting me to come up with some food. So have you ever cooked seitan before? Have you ever made it?
I've looked into how you make it because I've cooked for vegans before. And every
it's like
time
a wheat gluten, isn't it? A wheat gluten and vegetable broth or something. I've just said.
I'm going to bastardize it now. I'm probably saying very much wrong, but effectively, in its simplest form, it's basically flour and water, and yeast, and you stretch it out, and you wash it, and you stretch it out, and you make the gluten longer and longer and longer, and then you kind of tie it and wrap it on itself, and you wash it more, and you do it, and you do it more until it becomes almost like a knot, and then you can cook it and work with it and use it in different ways. But rightly or wrongly, every time I've looked into it, there's so many other options that you can do for vegans. And I'm obsessed with aubergines and cauliflower when it comes to that type of cooking. Like if you smoke an aubergine or roast an aubergine, cut it in half, scoop it out, baba ganoush it up, or just like mash it up with different flavorings, that will blow anyone's socks off as a dip. There's so much you can do with it. Or if you get like a whole head of cauliflower and you can cut it up into steaks and you can like, marinate it in stuff, and then you can just like cook it off directly, and it works like a steak. Mushrooms, there's so much you can do with mushrooms, and you can do like
But if you
stews
cook
and
with mushrooms, then you
stuff.
don't have much room for anything else.
Oh, you are a fun guy. You're a really fun guy. But that is a shit take on this conversation. Look, the world's our oyster. We just got to keep going,
Oh God.
but don't button it up.
Post cup.
But I like.
Anyway, but going back
Do
to
you
it, I
have
know
to?
you've
Do you
just gone.
have to cook with it? Do you have to
I
cook
know
with that,
you've
or
gone
is
on a
this?
monologue about other things, but I've been specifically challenged
That's what I was going to
to
ask.
do a
So
seitan recipe.
you
So
weren't challenged to vegan barbecue. You were challenged
no, it
specifically
was
to
specific.
seitan,
No,
right?
so it was specifically to do seitan with make a barbecue recipe and cook
Mhm.
him some. Basically, make seitan and do barbecue with it. So interested to know actually any listeners, have you ever cooked seitan? Have you ever made seitan and therefore cooked with it? And have you ever barbecued with it? I'd be interested to know if you've got any recipes because don't know where to start right now. But having a very brief flick through, you can. If I assume you could just make it into something that looks like a chicken, and going back to the chicken conversation we are having a minute ago, and maybe just do some grilled seitan steak type things that looks like chicken, I suppose.
Well, the glory of modern day devices means that we can quickly, as you so elegantly put it, flick through Google. Normally, when people are on the internet on their devices, they flick to other things, but I'm going to be flicking through Google right now. And I've come across a recipe that talks about using vegetable broth to give extra flavor when you're kind of washing it and cooking it, garlic powder, and that apparently with just 7 ingredients, you can create seitan, I don't know how you want to call it, um, in just 15 minutes. So there's options out there, you know. And this is just steaming it to get it through, and then you can make it look like kind of like breaded chicken that you'd get in like a Chinese takeaway. Oh, that's what you should do. That'll blow their mind. Right. I would like you to do this. Cook it on a barbecue, but present it and serve it like a Chinese takeaway, so doing two in one. So you can make like a sweet and sour sauce from like, vinegar, pineapple juice. I have no idea if ketchup's vegan, but you can probably say that way. But like so, but do it on the barbecue, right? So like cook it, smoke it indirect to get those flavors in, but baste it or cook it in that. So you're doing two in one. You're upstaging the challenge. You're not just doing it as one. It's almost like a barbecue bingo and serve it like it's a Chinese. That would be
Or in a foil dish with
glorious. Yeah, yeah, in a foil or a lazy Susan, the little bowls, and every time they go to eat it, you just spin it away and then laugh and how people think you were funny. Oh, that's gorgeous. And it gives you the advantage of being able to do pineapple on the barbecue, which I love so much. I keep going back to it, but it's still blows my mind the first time. Was it Sizzle Fest? It was the first time we had that done over live fire where was it Jürgen? Just hung the pineapple over the live fire for hours and hours. It was phenomenal. Um, I'm interested. I want you to take photos and put it up on the podcast. Now you've talked about it on the Instagram page, meet and greet.
yeah. Well, look, we'll see how we get on.
Is
So
there a date? Is there a date for this?
we've got a kind of company event on in mid-July. So I've got basically got between now and then to actually learn how to make it and cook it, and of course try it at least a couple of times just to perfect it.
Hmm. I'm really looking forward to that. Um, Before we go on to sausages and burgers, because we've mentioned them a few times, and before I forget, I want to talk about my cooking in the wild experience that I foreshadowed earlier in the episode about the chicken before you put it on the barbecue, cooking it beforehand. So, this was down in New Milton, in Dorset way. I think it's on the Dorset, Hampshire
Dorset, it's
border.
really good there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Full of
went
dad
to
jokes today.
absolutely love it.
That's the spin-off
That
dad
is
joke podcast.
um shiitake. Just go back on mushrooms again, repeating. But yeah, so went to a cafe place that was on the cliff face, literally beach. But they had a big sign outside that was it was called Expert Barbecue Today. I was like, I'm in. Walked in, they had three barbecues set up. They had a brick barbecue, which is such a 90s thing you don't see anymore. I don't know if that was just a UK thing, but like building with bricks with
Well,
like the bits of metal that you can put grills on and stuff. You just don't see that anymore, do you really?
no, no, I don't think so. Maybe in some gardens, right there, kind of brick built into. Expert barbecue today
Yeah,
was a
that's what the like like the chalkboard that you have outside. Um,
yeah.
and then they had this was maybe 2 years ago. I sent you photos when I was in there, but I didn't send you photos of the sign. They had like a huge Weber, like one of the XL
Oh, what the ranch
kettles,
ones?
the really big ones,
Yeah,
and then they had a big barrel, and you could see they'd set it up indirect. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. Um, and the guide was even putting aromatics on the coals. So like on one way he had some lamb skewers and he was putting rosemary on the coals. He'd put some like wild garlic on other ones that I was talking to me as like a perfume, blah blah blah. And such pride. I was chatting to him for a bit. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna bring chicken out." I was like, "Great, love to chat to you while you're doing it." The chicken they brought out had been pre-cooked, so he's gone to the point of putting aromatics on the coals and everything and set out indirectly, and they come out with pre-cooked chicken legs and chicken wings that he then flashes over the coals for like 2, 3 minutes tops, and
yeah.
then puts indirect and leaves them indirect to then serve to people. So if you came there like an hour later, some of that chicken had been sitting indirect on that Weber for an hour because I didn't see them bring any more bits out. Must have been the driest thing ever at that point. But I was like, they're advertising what they're doing as expert barbecue, and like I was really excited when I could see them actually thinking about, right, there's rosemary on there, let's pair it up,
But we
wild
had
garlic
but
on
we also had
there.
a similar scenario, didn't we, when we went to Meetopa a few years ago?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And obviously, it wasn't expensive. It was very expensive for what you got. But we went to that. I don't know. I don't know whether it was not. I can't even remember what grill they used, but it was kind of like it looked like an offset smoker type thing, or at least like a
Yeah.
Traeger did it, the kind of barrel one that you lift up with a. And they had mountains of chicken wings on there,
Hmm.
but by God, were they the driest chicken wings that you've ever tasted? I think they'd just been cooked and no one was buying them, so they just mounted up and they were just left as the heat was decreasing. But of course, they were just drying out. They were, if you bit into the bone, you'd cough out dust.
It was that situation where we'd been there for a while. We'd said we wanted to try as many different places that was there as possible, and there was no queue. And it wasn't until after we bought the things and started eating them that we realized,
Yeah,
ah,
but it was like 6.5
that's
quid for
why.
two chicken wings.
Yeah, exactly.
Dry.
And these things would have bounced like a squash ball, right? That's the sort of texture they were at. But on that point, that's the other reason not to be intimidated. People are doing far below subpar barbecuing and selling it for money. So don't be afraid to have a go of cooking something yourself. Half of the battle is having the confidence to go out there. Um, and on that point, so sausages,
Let's,
right?
yeah.
Sausages. Um, it blew my mind. No, that's a strong word. No, like doing sausages indirect for the first time on a barbecue and the different color that you get out of them and the different flavor that you get out of them compared to just cooking sausages in an oven or frying them off. They actually go like a different color, particularly if you're smoking, obviously, at like 180 until you hit temp compared to the, should we say, classic British, doing them direct and turning them and turning them and turning them until they go charcoal, right? But the extra flavor you get is so easy. You just chuck on the opposite side of a grill compared to where the coals are. Meat thermometer, make sure they hit temperature, and the flavor you'll get is great. And there's so many ways you can serve it as part of a barbecue, right? That's kind of your starter trick, as it were.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a trick, but I think that just the I don't it's not that's not relevant to or that's not exclusive just to sausages though, is it?
No, no, it's not. But it,
And anything that you don't cook on direct coal that you can bring up to temperature and then just get that kind of crispness on the outside. You can do that with anything, and that's ideal.
but that's how I always cook sausages on a barbecue now. For hot dogs, for anything. That's how I
All the
personally do
time.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always bring them up and then finish them on the high heat rather
Hmm.
than straight over the high heat.
Yeah. And
Because
the
of
flavor is
course,
so good. So
yeah, because
good.
you've always got the challenge, haven't you? And it depends on the quality of the sausage as well in terms of the meat content. Want some of the lesser meat content.
Yeah,
You know,
size isn't everything, is it?
um, but also if you're cooking them really hot, you can split the skins as well, can't it?
Hmm. And that can be very painful.
It can be very painful. Actually, and I'm sure in the 80 odd episodes that we've done, I've mentioned that before, where I've been cooking at someone else's barbecue and they've bought lesser quality sausages, and I had to take over mid cook, so they'd already put them on, and I was trying to get them into a two zone, but the coal was kind of everywhere, so I didn't really have the option. So I was literally flipping them like a madman, and skin split, all the fat drips out, and literally just the whole thing caught fire.
Hmm.
Um, you just don't get that if you create appropriate zones within your cooking area.
What about burgers when it comes to burgers? How are you on a kettle? How are you doing that? Are you flipping between direct and indirect? Are you
I don't.
cooking to temp, or are you just flashing them directly to a point that you're happy with?
I tend to flame grill them,
Hmm.
so direct.
So I like to use a plancha or a flat, if I'm on coals, or like a flat top like the Blackstone. Just you get the smash, but yeah, I find you could get a better crust. I know like people quite like the look of like the grill marks, but I think from like a bite and a taste perspective, similar
A
to a
smash.
steak really with a crust, like just you're getting that crust either side. I think it gives you a better experience. And if you have got a kettle and you're going that way, I would highly recommend getting a half moon plancha. I absolutely love cooking on them. I think there's loads you can do with it. You're still getting the flavor from kind of the charcoal, depending on how you're cooking it in there. But they're so fun to play with, and it gives you the opportunity to be smashing them, putting them down, flatten them out, getting a proper crust on a steak as well. Love it. Absolutely love it.
So we've been talking now for probably 20 minutes or so. I think we've just waffled mainly nonsense in that we've pretty much just said cook anything. Cook any if for a beginner, cook anything.
Yeah,
I
but
know
we
I know we haven't in the sense that we've gone, don't cook a brisket or don't cook a a full leg of lamb or anything first time. We have talked about some of the more basic stuff, but it's been quite a wide range of basic stuff. I think
but that's my
anything that
point. That's my
oh
point with entry barbecue. There's so much you can do, and it doesn't have to be complicated that
no,
people might feel intimidated by, but it's so easy. And there's other episodes that will go into much more complex stuff. We can talk about low and slow. We can talk about coal setups, we can talk about using like hot pots, cast iron pans. There's so much you can do from like a beginner inverted commas point of view on a barbecue that I think maybe would intimidate people. But the biggest thing, just have a go. Just have a go. What's
indeed.
the worst that can happen? Set fire to the house or like a shack, you know? That'd be quite bad. Don't do that. But have fun. That's what I mean. You're not going to spoil the food.
Unless the sun's cooked.
Is there anything else you want to? Well, that's the point of a meat thermometer, right?
Definitely.
So before we wrap this up, is there anything else that you'd like to add, Mr. Cook?
No.
I always find a prolonged silence is the best thing for a podcast, like primarily an audio feed. Well, I'd like to say Google us, Meet and Greet Barbecue Podcast. Please do write to us. We'd love to hear if this has inspired you to try something you've not tried before. Let us know. Message us on Instagram, Facebook, email us. Still want to hear more of your barbecue fails or anything that you've seen cooking in the wild other people do. Reach out to us, let us know, and we can discuss it in future episodes. But until next time,
Keep on grilling. Today's episode is brought to you by AOS Kitchens, the South's leading outdoor kitchen design and installation specialists.